Thank you for joining us for another edition of City Corner, an ongoing discussion program about what's going on in our community. My name is Trish Herron. I'm the Communications and Marketing Manager for the City of Richland. And joining us today is Kathleen Koch, Administrative Services Director for the City of Richland, and Deputy City Manager Bill King. Thank you for joining us.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
So let's just dive in since we normally only have one. We're dividing and conquering today. What are some of the highlights of the 2015 budget that you would like people to know about?
There are several great highlights that I pulled out of our budget document. I think for starters, we did not assume any sort of property tax increase other than for new construction and annexations. Those would be the only things that we receive any additional revenue. I think it's good for the community to know that we've planned in some water and electric rate increases. We do what's called a cost of service analysis every year, and that analysis says that it's time for us to do some increases in order to be able to keep up with the expenses. We do have 6% planned in water and 4.7% planned in electric. It's also really important that the community knows for an average residential electric bill, our bill today is running about $90 a month. And if you look at our comparators, and there were about 15 or 20 of them, we were third on the list for the lowest rates in terms of your electric bill. So our rates are still relatively low. It's an exciting place to be because we feel like we're giving really good value to our community. I think we'll talk about it a little bit later in this conversation, but we do have what's called a waterfront district planned.
Right, yes, we'll be talking about that.
It's a new focus that we have. While we've been working on those areas, we now are really trying to make that our sense of place, and so more to come on that topic. This past year, we began construction on Fire Station 7-4, and Fire Station 7-4 is located out at Dupertell and Queensgate. With Fire Station 7-4 comes the need for additional firefighters. We're actually taking some firefighters from just across City Hall and moving them to the new fire station, and then we've hired, or we will be hiring, 6 additional firefighters and EMTs as well to staff the new station. This will help us have a better response time and keep us from having to pool our firefighters and EMTs and our ambulances and fire trucks away from some of the main areas where today they have to travel quite a distance. And then I think the final thing that I wanted to highlight is the voters approved the criminal justice sales tax across Benton County of 0.3%. That 0.3% has been planned within the police department. We have some new staffing, and the new staffing, some of it, and maybe some others, I'm not sure exactly how the chief has it planned, but they will be what he's calling anchored out of the new fire station.
Right.
So the fire station that will be located at Dupertell and Queensgate, they'll be able to go in and out of that station instead of driving all the way back down to George Washington Way. That's part of what we'll use the money on. He also plans to focus on internet crimes. Specifically, they're targeting internet crimes against children, and that's a huge focus for the police department. And they have an officer assigned to the street crimes unit. So there's some other things in there as well, but those are some of the highlights.
So in the highlight, you mentioned Station 7-4, which is a great segue into talking about long-term planning, Bill. 7-4 has been on the books for years, and so that talks to our long-range planning that we have within the city. How does the city remain viable while maintaining that long-term vision?
Well, I think that's the key to remaining, vital and keeping on target. So we put a lot of energy into our long-range planning, both in terms of our comprehensive plan and in terms of our strategic plan that council sets, and by knowing where we're going long term, that helps us make focused decisions and allocate our resources in an appropriate fashion.
So speaking of thinking long term, how do we maintain our, how do we look so far ahead when financial constraints change on a consistent basis?
You know, I wouldn't say that in terms of our services that we try to sustain from year to year, that our financial constraints change materially. We have sort of those base revenue sources. We have what's called a three-legged stool with property taxes, utility taxes, and sales taxes. And those are what I would call our bread and butter. And we really plan around our ongoing revenue sources and the services that we are continuing to provide each year. Outside of that, we do try to plan in the one-time resources that are coming in. And we're very careful with spikes in, say, sales tax revenues and using them only on one-time purchases or capital projects so that we don't get ourselves into a pickle in the long run where we've, say, built a park and we can't afford to continue to maintain that park.
Right.
So we do a really good job, and during the budget process, all departments have the opportunity to submit what's called an expanded program request. And I wouldn't say they compete for funding, but we do prioritize the things that come out of those expanded program requests based upon the council parameters and all the discussions that are happening over the years, you know, whether it's in that year or over a long period of time, and determining which things we're going to focus on next and sort of pick off of the list.
Right. So how do we plan for operational efficiencies?
We use sort of that same pot of money, unless we can find money within each department's budget, and sometimes that happens as well. But quite often, departments will come forward and ask for some of that expanded program money, the one-time money, and they'll ask for a specific project in order to focus on something that they feel like needs to be vetted to determine whether there are some efficiencies to be gained. And a good example is this year we put in a request in our utility billing area to have a full audit done and really figure out if there's some efficiencies there to be gained so that we aren't doing certain things like I'm already seeing where we're probably doing more administration than we need to. And with those efficiencies will mean that we can apply our labor in very different ways so that we give more back to our community in ways that have much more value.
So you speak of labor, but we have another side that's really infrastructure.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we plan for maintaining or taking care of the infrastructure or the facilities with constraints?
So each year we actually set aside a pot of money to do regular ongoing repairs and maintenance. I think in 2015 we have about $350,000 set aside for parks maintenance and municipal facilities ongoing maintenance. Again, they tap into quite often the one-time money, and if they have additional needs, they can request other funding. But we've really programmed in some routine money each and every year to make sure that we don't fall behind. Our community's asked us to take care of what we have, and we very much intend to do that.
And there seemed to be an extreme focus on that last year with the deferred maintenance program, and it's just now that's not a special project, it's an ongoing project. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Last year it was either $800,000 or $900,000 that we set aside to do some of the deferred maintenance. We had a little bit of a backlog that we wanted to catch up. We used those one-time monies to get that backlog caught up, and now we just need to make sure that we are continuing to keep everything repaired and maintained so that we don't get into that position again.
So the special funds leads me into, there's some special projects this year for the waterfront visioning.
Absolutely.
Did you want to talk a little bit about our vision for the waterfront and what's being planned this year?
Yeah, it's. I think it's very exciting. You know, people are always drawn to water.
Right.
It's just sort of in our biology, I think, and you know, all the great cities have very vibrant waterfronts. We're very fortunate here that, you know, we have our great parks and public trails on the waterfront, but until fairly recently, we really haven't brought any development to the waterfront. And we've started to do that a little bit at Columbia Point, but people that we survey, people that live in this community, what we know from experience with other places, people want to be by the water. It's kind of a natural place
Right.
to gather and meet. And so our vision is to develop that with restaurants and other kinds of gathering places that people just are naturally drawn to. We're looking at the potential for festival grounds, other things that'll bring activity and just really utilize the place where people want to be, and give them the venues and the kinds of facilities that make sense there. We're, of course, have also set aside large areas of our waterfront that'll be kept natural, and I know that's important to our citizens as well.
Right.
But in the kind of the core part of the city, the areas adjacent to our downtown and the Columbia Point area, we're looking for a much more active kind of waterfront.
So there's a process that's involved here. There's two major areas right now that included a vision before there was any, shovels in the dirt. That's Queensgate area, as well as up north in the research district. How long does that process take for someone that sees that we're going to be doing a plan like this? How long does it take from plan to something actually moving?
Well, I've been with the city about 20 years now, and the Queensgate development, that was one of the first things I worked on when I when I joined the city. So, and we're, it is sometimes driven by external forces, but this is kind of ties back to your earlier question about the importance of a long-term vision, because these things do take time to bring about, and the decisions that we make today and the seeds that we plant today are what's going to give us our economic activity in the future.
Which are bountiful right now in the Horn Rapids area with the Chill Build, and then up north with Wine Science Center and all the work that's happening up at the research district. I mean, it literally just takes someone working on it and massaging it and making it work for that area, which is what will happen here. It's not going to be this cookie cutter development. It would be something that works well for our community.
Yeah, I think the research district and what's happening in our industrial park is a good example. That's the result of decisions that were made several years ago, and the city was able to form an LRF, Local Revitalization Financing District, and that's sort of Washington's form of tax increment financing, which gives us the ability to capture a little bit of the future growth. So both the city and the port and the county have pledged an increment of the property tax that will be generated by all of this new development to fund some bonds that have allowed us to put in infrastructure in that area, and that's what's supporting the largest freezer in North America. I'm told
Right.
it's the largest single freezer building in the world.
That's right, we'll take it.
And you mentioned the Wine Science Center. That we put in infrastructure that helped with that. The city formed a development authority that sort of served as a vessel to collect both some grant monies and monies that were donated by the wine industry. And we've just completed that building. It's now been turned over to WSU, so it's a great addition to their campus.
And that's how it's supposed to work. It's not supposed to be this ongoing chipping away. It's supposed to have a begin and hopefully an end date. And grow from there.
Yeah, well, as a matter of fact, we just dissolved the development authority that was created to oversee the Wine Science Center. So there's an example of council had a vision, the development authority was created. Along with our economic development partners, we were able to get that facility built, and it's now going to be the center of wine research for the entire state.
And hopefully the Pacific Northwest.
I'm sure.
Hopefully we'll be able to put that star on the map
Yeah.
too. So efficiency, we spoke about it a little bit earlier. How does technology play a role in efficiency?
Technology is critical. Our council has been supportive of the technology efforts. We had a 5-year plan that has been put into place, and we're getting ready to go out and do another 5-year technology plan. We will be looking at ways to optimize our systems. We'll also be looking for ways to integrate our systems. Today we have a lot of one-offs, and it makes it difficult to bring those systems together to create the most efficiencies that we should have. So we'll be looking at ways to do that with things like our financial system, our asset management system. There's so many out there that we utilize that make us all much better at what we do, so that we can do other things, really spend our time in other areas for the community. And technology is one of the best ways to make that happen.
And
if I could just add to that,
For sure.
One of the things we've done for the city's needs, but it'll also help with our private sector development, is the broadband network.
right.
So that gave us the backbone for the city system, but we've oversized it so our private clients in the community can tie into that system. Some of this LRF money that I was speaking of earlier, we're using that to extend the network into the industrial park and the research district. So that's very, very attractive feature. It makes our community more desirable to companies that may be looking to relocate.
Especially up in that area, and it's nice because everyone in between also benefits from
Absolutely.
pulling all that broadband up, the fiber. I was going to call it wire. It's not wire, it's fiber. So when we speak about finances, there's so many different components to it, including national and state contributions. I don't know if it'd be contributions that you would say. How do we plan for capital facilities projects while balancing what the state, what we can get from the state or from the federal government?
We actually have a plan, a capital improvement plan that goes through 2030. That's where we do a lot of our major project planning. And we spend time working with a small group of our council members in prioritizing that and prioritizing funding sources. Two of the funding sources you're talking about, the state and the federal funds, those are items that are significant to projects like Dupertail.
Right.
Without those funding sources, it will be very difficult to get Dupertail off the ground by ourselves. So we do our best projections, and we have certain expectations that we feel like should come to fruition. I think we have about 4 different options that we have estimated with Dupertail, so that if one doesn't pan out, then hopefully one of the other 3 will come to fruition in the long run. But it's something that you just have to kind of wait and see, and we spend a lot of time with our state legislators, and we do some lobbying and different things to make sure that we're always in front of them. Mm-hmm. So that we are being considered for those sources. We have, I think it's about a $34-35 million project just for Dupertail, and there's another 25 or 30 projects that we're working on through 2030. And the state and federal sources will be important to many of those projects. If they don't come to fruition, then we look for other funding opportunities.
And we have staff that's dedicated to constantly going out there to find out different opportunities and options for the city while that main plan is working its way through the system.
Absolutely.
We participate at a different level from the communications office with some of those to try and polish them up a little bit to make them not so dry. So we've talked a lot about the visioning for 2030, which is interesting. 7-8 years ago when we started talking about the strategic leadership plan, 2030 seemed so far away. Now we're
Sneaking up on us.
15 years away from 2030. And what do you guys envision Richland will look like in 15 years?
Well, I think we're very much on target for the vision that Council laid out. We're definitely seeing new activity in the core of the city and what we refer to as the Waterfront district. There's several new projects coming in at Columbia Point. We're seeing new activity in the downtown area, so that very active, vital core area. I think that's coming to pass as was envisioned. Certainly out at the research district, we have the National Lab and WSU, but the vision was to build on that and bring in additional research companies and build on that. We're definitely seeing that with some private players that are coming in. We just announced a new company, Live Tiles, that's a technology company that's locating in that area. We'll see some redevelopment activity in the Richland Y, or the Island View area,
Island
as we
View,
call
yes.
it. Thank you. And,
Formerly known as.
Yeah.
Right?
So that area's been in full transition for a while, and I think we'll see that change. And then, of course, we'll see new growth in the Badger Mountain South area. So the city's expanding that direction, as well as all these infill projects and the balance of the community.
Excellent. Kathleen?
From sort of the financial perspective, I think what we'll see is how do we keep up with the growth and our current services, and how do we continue to maintain the service levels our community has come to expect.
Right.
It's a tough balance where we want to make sure, like with this local revitalization financing, we're actually funding new infrastructure and development and maybe taking on a small amount of risk, but at the same time, how do we make sure we don't do too much of that and we balance it with keeping up with what we've already committed to. So it's something that I kind of work on behind the scenes with the rest of the organization and the city manager and the council. And that's truly Richland has done a great job of it. If you just look at our community, it's a great reflection of that being done for many, many years. And I see that continuing to be done over the next however many generations to come.
So we brought the perfect balance, the yin and yang here, because you're the wouldn't it be great if, and you're the hold on, we have to pay for it, right?
Yes, exactly.
That's one of the things people don't know. They don't understand that when you see this growth happening, that it doesn't always pay for some of the services that need to be out there. And I'm not specifically talking about economic development because it has its own positive benefit to the community, but residential growth for sure, and bringing all the infrastructure out there, you have to calculate it in a different way. So what would be, if you had a couple of things that you would, or one or two things that you'd like to say to the general public to understand about Richland or the roles that you play within Richland, what would you like the public to know?
From my perspective, I'd like the public to know that much like them, we still have to live within our means. We realize that it's not a blank check or a pocketbook that, we can just keep picking out of. And it's tough for us, too, to make the decisions on what we need to be doing for the community. Their input is very valuable. you know, the fact that we do surveys and we hear from them on what's going well and what they'd like to see us focus on or change, that really helps us plan for the future. So the citizens continuing to bring that information forward or even encourage us on what we're doing and they want us to continue to do, all of that's important so that as we plan for the future, we can do the best job for everybody in the community.
Perfect. And I like to remind people that there's many opportunities to find out what's going on, whether or not you watch Channel 192 or on our website or attending meetings. That's always, we try and make it as transparent as possible. That's my little plug.
Yeah.
Right. What about you, Bill?
Well, it's, as we've talked about through much of this program, it's important to think long-term, think about, you know, what's important to this community, and make those wise investments. And there's a kind of a balance, you know, that the community wants to grow. We'd like to have those services that bigger cities have, and but we also want to preserve what's you know, that small town character that's important to us as well, and protect our natural environment while we're accommodating future growth. And that's, you know, that takes, you know, a lot of vision on the council's part, a lot of coordination from all the staff members to try to implement that.
And our partners as well.
Absolutely.
We've had some great success with our partners. And this has been a success. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thank you.
Pleasure.
And thank you for joining us. We'll see you next time on City Corner.
The City of Richland wants to make paying your utility bill as easy and convenient as possible. That is why we offer multiple options for payment. You may pay in person at the Utility Billing Office located at 505 Swift Boulevard. Office hours are Monday through Friday from 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. This is also where you sign up for new accounts, pay for animal licensing, sign up for a business license, or disconnect your service. If you prefer to pay your utility bill with our automated phone system, you may do that as well by calling 942-1104 and choose option 2. Please have your current bill and account number available. You may also pay your utility bill online. It's quick and easy. Please have your utility billing statement available before you begin the online process. To access this service, go to Richland's homepage and click on I Want To, then Pay My Utility Bill. Richland offers 2 ways to conduct online payments. Infinity Link is a secure and easy way to make transactions. First-time users must register prior to use. Information such as billing history, meter reading history, usage history, as well as viewing utility bill inserts and autopay services are all a part of Infinity Link. Or if you do not want to sign up for Infinity Link, Richland also offers online quick pay. This service is a simple way to pay a current utility bill online. Richland's budget billing is a way to keep your utility payments equal for 12 months in a row. This service makes it easier to figure them into your monthly budget. If you're interested in this service, please call our utility billing department at 942-1104 and choose option 1. Services are also available for low-income seniors or persons with disabilities to receive assistance with utility bill payments. If you have questions about this or any other utility bill related question, go online or give us a call at 942-1104.